What's up? What's up? It's the Arthur Moats Experience with Deke. I'm Arthur Moats, and that's my main man, Deke.
What's up, man?
Man, rough Monday morning. Late night was not the outcome we were looking for in terms of being Steeler fans. Yeah, it was rough. That's all I gotta say right now, man. It was a tough morning, man. Tough. How you doing today, man? You hanging in there?
I'm not cool, dude. And you've talked about this before with being here in Pittsburgh, and this is what you get with the Steelers. People care, and it just really sucks because basically everything that happened last night was opposite of what I was hoping for or predicted. So I guess it sucks too, just, everything with the offseason, all the hype, and it's like you're waiting this whole time, and especially against the Patriots, you're like, oh man, this is such a big game,
Absolutely, man.
And then just for it to happen how it did, it just blows, man.
Oh, without a doubt, man. Like you said, from the fans' perspective, I can 100% understand, because the last time you got a chance to cheer for the Steelers in a meaningful game was versus the Bengals last year. Mm-hmm. You don't make the playoffs. You go through the whole offseason, the chaos, Le'Veon signing with the Jets, the AB debacle and how that thing played out. Obviously, you had the passing to Coach Drake. It was just so much stuff, and you're waiting for something positive. You're waiting for the opportunity to be happy. And it was just the ultimate letdown from start to finish last night, man. It was a rough go at it, man.
Yeah. And, that's the thing I'm wondering, though. I don't know if it's better just to lose that way, where it's just like, wow, that was just a clunker where there's not – maybe there's less on tape of, like, solid things that we're going to be putting out there because of just how bad the game is, as opposed to us losing, like, in a nail-biter or maybe only losing by, like, 10. I don't know from a – like – because I think we'll get over it really quick once Wednesday, Thursday comes around. The Seahawks game's coming up, so I don't know.
Yeah, so from like the player's perspective, you don't care if you lose by 50 or you lose by 3. Like, a loss is a loss. Period. You take it hard because of the amount of time and sacrifice that you associate with it. But the thing that I will say is this: from the players, they can't wait till Wednesday or Thursday. They have to get over it. They got 24 hours, man. That game ends regardless if you win or lose. 24 hours, you got to move on, because if you won last night and then you're on this high celebrating all week, but then you get beat the next 2-3 weeks in a row, it really didn't matter, right?
Yeah.
And then the flip side to that is you lose, okay, but if you dwell on it, that one loss is going to become 2 or 3 losses. So you can't dwell on it. Whatever happened, you got to flush it 24 hours, and after that, move on, because man, Seattle's coming in here. They don't want to hear that you guys lost a heartbreaker. They don't want to hear that you guys got blew out. They're trying to get another win.
Yeah.
So for the Steelers, they got to get their head out their butts, correct the mistakes that they had, get that dub, and then shoot, 3 weeks from now, if they're sitting at 3-1, is anyone gonna be talking about this Patriots game?
No.
And that's the beauty of football in general, man. That next week, next game mentality, man. You just got to flush it, understand what you did wrong, understand what you did right, but then continue to move on from it, man.
Yeah. So what do you think? What do you think they did right?
Man, well, from a what they did right standpoint, I first off was very impressed with James Washington. I think that he was able to carry over some of the success that he had throughout the preseason, and when he had the big catch in the opener last night. I do think that he needs to continue to grow, because I think that's a catch that you could turn into a touchdown versus having a big gain and running out of bounds.
Right.
So I did like that element. Another element was in terms of pass protection. I think the O-line did a good job for the majority of the game. Obviously, late in the game when they knew it was out of hand, I think that's when it started getting a little bad for them. But for the majority of the time, I thought they played really well in terms of pass blocking, not in terms of run blocking, but in terms of the pass blocking, keeping them clean. And for Ben, he had the late jump ball turnover, but for the majority of the game, he did protect the ball, and that was something that we wanted to see, especially after last season with him having a league-leading 16 interceptions. So it was good to see that kind of took a step back. But, I mean, this is a ton of things that we got to fix and that they got to correct. I'm sure you would agree with that, man.
Yeah, dude, I was this morning I went on the internet and was looking up to see if Martavis Bryant got reinstated.
Oh, man.
Yeah, dude, I was a little just a little disappointed in receivers, specifically Moncrief, man. Some of those drops were pretty key. It was pretty disappointing, and they were in key moments. Like we needed a fourth first down. It was a
3rd and 1. He dropped one in the end zone as well, man.
It sucks because for me, man, I would never be able to make that catch if my life depended on it. But like for him to have it like in his hands and then the defender to swat it away, I think that's something like I guess I can understand a little bit. But at the end of the day, you just got to catch it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think here in Pittsburgh, we've been spoiled in terms of receivers. You're used to seeing receivers make spectacular catches, combat catches, what we call those, where you're catching it with the defender on you. We're so accustomed to seeing these receivers that have come through here historically make these great plays that when you see a guy get hit in his hands and the ball pops out, it's like, no, you're supposed to catch that still because that's what the standard is. And when you just look at Moncrief's numbers, he was 3 catches for 7 yards on 10 targets.
Yeah.
But I think he had, 4 drops. For me, that can't happen at this level.
No.
And especially when you had a guy like James Washington who was so productive throughout the preseason, so productive throughout training camp.
And even this first game. That
he's still
huge
absolutely.
Huge
for James, I mean, 2 catches, 51 yards. And it's just you ask yourself, what is it that the offensive staff sees in Dante Moncrief that they feel warrants him to be out there more than James Washington?
What would you think? Because I'm asking the same question.
For me, I think because it was the opener, you go with the veteran nod, similar to why Vince Williams got the start at the inside linebacker spot. I think you go with the veteran nod just because you are under the assumption that you know what you're going to get. But that still doesn't mean that the person's going to play well. They still have to prove it. They still have to go out there and execute. And I think that's where Moncrief struggled. But once again, from a optimistic standpoint, Moncrief is a professional. He hasn't lasted in this league this long by having multiple performances like that. That was very uncharacteristic of him. So I'm assuming that he gets back in the lab this week and he has a bounce back performance because you don't play multiple years in this league if you can't catch. He's not a special teams guy. So for me, I'm chalking it up as first game jitters, rust, whatever it may be. But unfortunately, it happened on just a massive stage last night. So that's why everything is being magnified right now, But the person from a receiver standpoint that I wanted to see more of was Juju personally. Mm-hmm. Granted, he was 6 catches, 78 yards, but
nothing was meaningful. So it's hard for me because, I want to say like, hey, I saw this with Juju being covered this way, and this is why he wasn't getting targeted the way he was. But what was going on there?
A lot of the
was he just getting locked up by Gilmore? Or were they doubling him?
So that was the thing. So historically, the Patriots would double AB. Juju would have success because he was matched up versus the second corner. And even when they tried to double Juju with AB out there, then that opens the running game up, which is why you saw Jalen Samuels go for 142 yards last year. This year, they isolated Gilmore on Juju. Now, granted, Gilmore would have some type of interior, low help from a linebacker potentially on certain calls, but the majority of it was just man on man. And, I mean, tip your cap to Stephon Gilmore. He's an all-pro for a reason. He's
top 3 cornerback in the league,
absolutely. Right? So that's the matchup. But for me, being in the meeting room with Coach Tomlin and hearing how he would talk to Antonio Brown during these situations, I've heard him talk to AB regardless if it was Jalen Ramsey, Joe Hayden, Patrick Peterson. It didn't matter who was guarding him. He would simply tell AB, this is a win. We're not booking this as a tie. If you tie this matchup, we lose. If you lose this matchup, we lose. You have to win it, period. And for Juju to be the bona fide number 1 receiver that he wants to be and that us as Steeler fans believe he can be, he has to dominate those type of matchups. When have you ever saw one person cover Antonio? When one person guards him, that's when you see him go for 170, 200 yards and he's dancing in the end zone. That's what we need from Juju. The fact that they were able to have Gilmore guard him by himself for a large portion of the game had a trickle down effect because now they can still have a safety over top helping on James Washington if he starts going crazy as a number 2 receiver. You're able to have more guys in the box. So now James Conner doesn't have running room. Jalen Samuels doesn't have running room. And those are all the trickle-down effects of him not commanding that double team last night. So for me, that was the biggest thing that I took away from that receiving group. It's like, it starts with you, Juju. You're the guy. you got to make these plays and make them respect you. Like when you look just from the stats, 6 for 78 yards. Oh yeah, that doesn't look terrible. But
a lot of remember we talked with fantasy garbage time.
It was garbage time. It was like none of that happened in meaningful moments. For the majority of the game, you couldn't even tell that he was out there.
Yeah,
and that's a problem if that's your number one receiver, and especially when there is no Juju as his number 2. Like who is his Robin right now? We don't know. At least last year, if AB had a 6 catch 70-yard game,
Juju had a big
you knew
one.
Juju was gonna go off.
Yeah.
And that's the difference right now. They have to find their identity in that room. They have to find what's going to make them be successful in that room, man, because that's going to have a direct correlation to James Conner's success and Ben's success.
Yeah, so that kind of makes sense then with why, I mean, you're hearing all this stuff with AB right now. If he's like that important to our win, like Tomlin saying, it's you and him. Like if you do this, we win. So that kind of makes sense as to why, you know, we had AB for this long period, and you know whatever was happening off the field was happening. But with the Patriots getting him, it seems like it's just house money for them because they don't need him now. It's
not
just
at
like,
all. Yeah,
damn.
if he balls out, great. If not, it was what, a $9 million flyer for, you know, a guy who at the time was in his prime.
And you just see what they did without him.
Yeah,
yesterday.
Absolutely, man. So
didn't seem like they missed a beat.
The beauty is this, though, man. For the Steelers, they won't have to cross that bridge until it's playoffs now. So they can completely flesh that situation out their mind and just focus. Because as much as if you talk to the players and they would publicly on record say that it didn't bother them, they didn't think about it, we're all human. You're thinking about, oh man, AB signed there, I'm pissed. Or how everything played out, I'm pissed. I still got to answer AB questions, I'm pissed. That's associated with it. And understanding that, hey, you're going into that stadium knowing he just signed there earlier that day, or was agreed to a deal.
Right. In the owner's box too.
Yeah, so those are all the things that would definitely go through their mind. Now, is that a direct impact on this game? I don't think so. But did it have an impact? I'm sure it did.
Maybe just pressing or trying too hard.
Because in your mind, you're like, I gotta win even more now. I'm so heated. I gotta do this even more to stick it to the pages. I gotta try extra hard today, and not just playing your game, not just being focused. And I think those were the things that had a big correlation. But to stick on the offensive side, man, I think that Ben got off to a super slow start, looked rusty. The lack of preseason reps for me personally is where I think is the direct correlation, because you can't get better at football and you can't stay football sharp without playing football. Like, you can practice all you want, but it's not the same. You can watch as much film as you want, but it's not the same as actually being out there taking those reps. And for Ben, he saw 17 plays versus the Titans.
Yeah.
And the Titans aren't even a top defense. So when you factor in 17 plays versus the Titans, and then after that, the next action he sees is versus the New England Patriots defense, like, that's rough. Like, the Patriots, even when they don't have top talent, they always are a well-coached defense, and they always find ways to execute defensively, and they don't beat themselves.
No.
And that's what you saw last night.
Yeah, it was frustrating, especially the slow start. Now, I think what also was weird, or I don't know, was frustrating, was some of the, you know, the calls with like being like fourth down and not
very conservative.
Going for it. Yeah, like I didn't get that, and you know, even kicking the field goal down in the end zone, like,
and he said we need some positivity.
So what? I mean, how do you explain that, or what's what's your take?
Man, I think the biggest thing when we talk about the play calling, because they were getting gashed defensively, because they weren't being able to stop them, I think initially it made the Steelers become a little more conservative in terms of, we can't go for this 4th and 1 when we just got stopped on a 3rd and 1. If we turn the ball over right here, they're going to put more points up. And then the next thing is, all right, coming out of the half is 20-0. We're down here on the goal line. We just got stopped 3rd and 1. Granted, I would much rather have seen them put Rosie in the game and run James Conner behind him, but they didn't, and it is what it is. But for them, they're thinking we have to come away with some type of points, because if you go for it on 4th and 1 and you get stopped, now that completely kills you. But you kick the field goal with the thought process that, hey, the defense is coming out now. If we can get a quick stop, we score a touchdown here. Now it's 20-10, and now it's a ball game. But what happens? They kick the field goal, it's 20-3, but then Brady comes down and hits Philip Dorsett for the touchdown pass, and that blew the game wide open right there.
Yeah, because it's almost like whenever you see them doing the field goal, it almost feels like insanity, where it's like you're just gonna give him the ball again, and we've been seeing what he's been doing this whole game. What my thought is, this is my Madden thinking of playing video games.
All right, let's hear it.
You just go for it, and then if you don't get it, they're stuck at the 1 yard line. It's kind of like a tough situation for them. Like I'm thinking, like, what's the difference of 3 in that point? We're already down 20-0. You know?
Yeah, for me, I think of it this way, right? If you haven't stopped New England, right? You giving them the ball, it doesn't matter if they're getting it on their own 1 or the 50-yard line, they're gonna move the ball. And for me, the strategy is, at that point in the game, you need 2 field goals, 2 touchdowns, right? So it doesn't matter if you kick the field goal now or if you kick the field goal in the fourth quarter. Yeah. Either way, some type of combination, you're going to need that field goal. So if you feel comfortable taking it right there and you're betting on your defense making the stop, well, that's what you do. But it's more of a feel thing. Some people, it's no different than when you're gambling, right? Some people, when they're up, they're like, you know what, I'm comfortable. I'd rather step away. Others are like, hey, look, man, we got a chance to really hit it big here. Let's double down. And that's kind of how I look at it in that situation. So, I mean, you can't go wrong in either one. But all I know is if you go for it on 4th down and you do not get it, the game is all the way over now because you're demoralized offensively. For them, they have an avalanche worth of momentum now. And from there, it's just continuing to snowball for you.
Oh, so on defense, you going out there on the 1, like you wouldn't be thinking like mentally like, hey, like we got a chance for like a safety here or something.
You think that always, but realistically, had they done anything to get any negative play, until that point they hadn't even touched Brady. Think about that. That same drive was where T.J. Watt finally got some pressure on Brady, but even then they completed the pass to Julian Edelman. So up until that point, what would make you think that this time we're going to get a safety? This time we're going to make them have a negative play. And that's, for me, was the part where I'm just like, I didn't personally see it. But you get that field goal, or if you scored a touchdown in any regard, well, now defensively you're out there with momentum like, hey, it's on us, guys. We just got to stop here. We just got some points here. We get this offense the ball back. Now we're back in this game. And that's kind of how you think about it, because the biggest thing is you don't want the game to get away from you. When the game gets away from you, that's how it can get ugly. And even when it was 20-3, when they kicked that field goal, like I said, if they get that stop, offense gets the ball back, who knows? But they end up scoring, and that's why it looks crazy. And then they're like, why would you kick the field goal there versus going for on 4th and 1? But that's just the hindsight being 2020 element of it.
End of the day, I guess defense just got to make those stops.
Absolutely. Yeah. If defense makes the stops, get them the ball back, it's a totally different conversation.
Yeah, we're not really talking about like the semantics here. So like, let's go back to the offense. Like, is there anything that could have been done better? Because the way you kind of laid it out, it was just like, man, we had a tough hill, going uphill almost. Yeah.
When I think about the things
like
that the offense could have done
was there
better,
that much of a discrepancy you saw of the play just between the Steelers and Patriots?
No, I think obviously the Patriots, like I said, they're a well-coached team. I think that they won their one-on-one matchups, but it was a couple things that stood out in regards to why the Steelers' performance was what it was. I think that a lot of people, including the players and fans, underestimated the impact of AB and Le'Veon. They underestimated AB's impact in particular in trying to think that Juju could just walk in day one and do what AB does when he hasn't done it yet.
I might have been one of them.
Yeah, well, a lot of people looked at the stats. Oh, look at his stats. He had more receiving yards, more this and that. But I'm like, you're forgetting the attention that this man draws on the opposite side. So Juju's not seeing number one corners. It's different. And that's something that he's going to have to adjust and grow with, and hopefully he does. But that was the first thing, and the trickle-down effect of that, which is why James Conner couldn't have success. The next thing is the line of scrimmage. Offensively, they lost the line of scrimmage. If you looked at any running play they had, they didn't get any type of movement up front. They had penalties, a ton of penalties, and those are the things that really hurt them from an offensive standpoint. And then I also go back to, like I said, Big Ben. I mean, he just started out slow. He looked very rusty. And that opener, by the time you get to week 3, it'll be drastically different from what we saw in week 1 from Ben. But I do think that's a direct correlation of his lack of preseason and lack of practice reps leading up from the offseason into now.
Got you. Now, I guess maybe one of the reasons why, this is just me personally, I have just one game in mind as to why I'm thinking like, all right, no AB, no problem, is the Denver game back in the playoffs in 2016, where, you know, Ben threw for like over 300 yards, thrashed the Denver defense without AB. But at their place, we had Martavis, though.
And so who else was out there, though, with Martavis, though?
We had Marcus Wheaton.
Absolutely. So he still had valuable options. Yeah, I think that same year, Marcus Wheaton had torched the Seattle Seahawks defense for 200-plus yards.
Right.
So it wasn't like Martavis was the only guy out there. You had options. Whereas last night with Juju, who was the other receiver that has proven to be a threat on that level yet?
Got you. So
we haven't seen it.
I guess I'm just thinking mentally in my mind, I'm just categorizing Wheaton in with like Moncrief, Washington right now. Just like I guess it's the only way for me to like process like how the offense is going to look. And so you're saying Wheaton had more of an impact than maybe I thought then in the past.
Absolutely he did. But a lot of people, when you look at the AB, you look at AB's situation while he was here, you overlook a Marcus Wheaton.
Yeah.
When you look at how good Martavis was, you overlook a Marcus Wheaton. And that's typically how it goes. But Marcus Wheaton was essentially the third receiver on that roster, not the second receiver. So in that Denver game, Ben was able to make a ton of plays and things like that. But at the same time, remember, Ben had torched that defense earlier in the year too. So he had their number. Whereas New England historically finds ways to schematically be a difficult matchup for the Steelers. And then personnel-wise, they match up well with the Steelers, man, in terms of the bodies that they use up in the front seven and then their corners, man. They typically have nice-sized corners who are physical, and that's what Gilmore is. I mean, he's not a little guy.
So now let's switch to the defense. Yeah. You were talking about it last podcast, like just the many looks they throw at you. It's like, all right, you want to do zone?
We got something for that.
Yeah. So like, what did they do so well to us, and like what did we do that just wasn't working? Well,
similar to what I talked about last week, man. The inside linebackers versus the Patriots running backs. We saw them go to that matchup early and often and have a ton of success. Rex Burkhead, James White, Sony Michel.
White was, I guess that was the thing that was surprising to me whenever I was seeing it on the TV was how much separation White was able to get on Barron. Like he was getting him on those sides. Like
that was why I highlighted that matchup in particular, because I felt that the tight end situation with Gronk retiring and their other two tight ends and Ben Watson and Lance Kendricks being suspended, they didn't have a valuable tight end option. I thought Josh Gordon would have some success, but I felt for the most part Joe Hayden could handle him as long as he's traveling with him. I knew Julian Edelman would have some success as well. I did not account for Philip Dorsett, though. But I was looking on board, and I'm just saying that was the matchup that would challenge the Steelers the most and put them in the most stress. And you saw a lot of times they would have two backs out there and have one back lined up at the number one receiver spot. The other back is lined up in a slot or coming out the backfield running routes, and making these linebackers have to play in space, making these linebackers have to play like a defensive back. And the reason it's so difficult, even though Mark Barron has straight line speed, even though Devin Bush has straight line speed, when you're running crossing routes like they were running last night, the communication element plays a bigger role, because now we have to know, okay, how are you going to trail your guy? Are you going to go directly behind him? Are you going high? Are you going low? We got to make sure that we don't run into each other. All it takes is a split second of me trying to dodge you or dodge your guy or thinking indecisively in my mind, and now this guy's open. And I think all of those things showed up on film, which is why not only was Mark Barron having a lot of separation, but even Devin Bush was giving up a lot of separation. And then you saw when they put Vince Williams out there, he got the mismatch with Josh Gordon. These were the things that they wanted to exploit, and that they did. And that's what makes New England so good. They understand the matchup element of it, and they exploit those matchups. And it's on you as a defense to minimize them. But then I'll take it a step further than that. Not only do you have to worry about the matchups, you can't beat yourself. Think about the amount of missed tackles and blown assignments where guys are just running scot-free.
Yeah.
You will never beat the New England Patriots playing like that. They are one of those teams that they, like I said, won't have the best talent, but they're not going to beat themselves. And like I said, you saw last night, how many times were guys running free? How many times you see guys miss tackles? Even the Josh Gordon touchdown.
Yeah, that was tackle. Well, was that a blown assignment too? Because
he was running wide, by himself,
wide open, and then combination with the missed tackle, two guys there, and just when he was like 7-8 yards away from the end zone when we first made the contact with him, and still got in. Right, that's crazy.
Those are the things that get you beat, man. And that is a direct correlation as well to the preseason. Guys don't play a lot during the preseason. You look at the defense; they weren't out there a lot during the preseason. Even Devin Bush, who played the most out of all the starters in the preseason, he was playing a quarter, 2 quarters tops.
Yeah.
So when you put them out there versus top tier talent, and have to do it for 4 quarters, and you're chasing these guys, the tackling element. If you don't work on tackling, you're not going to be good at tackling. And those are the things that really showed up out there, man. I think that even the young guy in the back, man, the safeties, they struggled as well, man, with their communication. You saw that on the Philip Dorsett touchdown pass. Just who's going to stay high, who's going to come down in terms of the coverage that they were running. These are all the issues that are associated with playing the New England Patriots in the different looks, but also the importance of the communication element. If you don't communicate, you have mental errors, it kills you defensively, man.
That's crazy. So what is there anything, because it seems like every time we go up there, not necessarily when they come here, because last 2 times, we should have won the Jesse James one, and then the last one we just won. We beat them pretty good.
Yeah.
Is it something just like with New England being up there? We kind of touched on it last time, but like, I don't know. Is it like the stadium, how it is? Like, I don't know. It's just, I think it's something.
It's very similar.
They showed those Brady stats. What was it? 18 touchdowns, 0 picks, last 5 games up there.
I think it's very similar to how teams feel when they play at Heinz Field. They make it mystical. They make it bigger than what it is, and essentially you get in your own head. It's no different than, like you said, when that same New England team came here to Heinz Field last year. That was a different game.
Because the reason I asked that is like, what if next week we see or the next following weeks we see like Miami play New England tough, or like I think the Bills and Jets play them too coming up. Like we see them like play them tough. And it's like, why couldn't have we done that?
They will play them tough, man. In that division, they always do. But that's the thing, man. I think not only from the players, but the fans' perspective, they make that anytime it's played a New England game almost the equivalent of a Super Bowl. Like the hype around it, the media attention around it, the conversations around it. And then you get there to the game and
high expectations.
Yeah, you've hyped it's so much.
Whereas like with these other teams, everyone thinks they're gonna
right. So they're just like, I'm just gonna go ahead and play my game.
Yeah.
But it's only when the Steelers play New England. When they play Seattle next week, it's not gonna be like that.
Yeah.
When they play San Fran the week after that, it's not gonna be like that. But that's just the nature of it, man. People, especially in Pittsburgh, when they're playing New England, because of the personal grudges and the animosity towards them, they make it bigger than what it has to be. It's just another game. You have to focus on it and take it in that regard. So that way you're able to go out there and just play your game and execute the way you execute.
It's almost like that golfer trying to win that first major going up against another golfer that has multiple majors already up on that Sunday. That golfer that has no majors is like, they're so tight. Yeah. But then that golfer with the majors, I can win, lose, I'm already solid.
I'm already good. Yes, indeed, man. And that's what we saw, man. And just looking at the defense, man, another thing that they struggled with was not only did they not get pressure on Brady, the 1 sack was from Bud, and that was pretty much in the garbage time, but they couldn't get off the field on third downs. You looked at the stats, the Patriots were 50% on third down. That's way too high. And then the opposite of that was the Steelers offense was only 25% on third downs.
That was bad.
From a conversion rate, that's terrible.
Yeah.
You're not sustaining drives, and then you're not getting off the field if you're the defense. And when you looked at the amount of plays that the Patriots played compared to the Steelers at one point in the game, I think it was like double. And you're never going to win like that, especially when you're not even able to create big plays in the passing element or in the running element. So it was just a recipe for disaster, man.
No, definitely. So what did you think of the play? I guess not necessarily one individual play, but like the safeties and cornerbacks. How do you think they did? Because there was the one with Dorsett,
right?
Streaking across the middle. Like, was there just lack of communication there? Do you think just not executing, not being able to do it?
No, I think from an ability standpoint they have it, but mentally, man, it was too many mental errors, too many missed tackles. Those are the two things that any defensive coordinator will tell you will get you beat 100% of the time, because the talent is too good at this level. You can't afford to make these type of mistakes and think that we're so good we can overcome it. The margin of error is too small. And those are the things that showed up time in and time again on that back end especially. And when you're factoring these missed assignments, these missed tackles, and you're not creating turnovers on top of it, well, you don't stand a chance, especially versus the New England Patriots.
Yeah. So what's there to hope for? Or like, can we just chalk this up like, hey man, this is just a shit game? Because like everything we're talking about, it's like we're trying to break it down, like to where, all right, what did you see out there? And it's just more like it's just bad all around, right? Yeah, like it just wasn't best performance.
Like I said, the positives that you take away from it, like I said, the O-line, they definitely kept Ben clean for the majority of the time. James Washington definitely showed that he can continue to take steps and carry over that preseason performance into the regular season. And the last thing that I always tell him is it was one game. It doesn't make or break your season. When's the last time a team went undefeated? Think about that. And the team that did go undefeated, did they win the Super Bowl? No. Sure. So when you think about all that, man, don't get caught up in this game. Don't let this game carry over. That's the one that you can't have the hangover effect with this. You can no hangovers off this game. You flush it, learn from it. The communication, you got to iron that out. The missed tackles, you got to iron that out. The offensive being more in sync, you got to iron that out. Juju winning those one-on-ones, you got to iron that out. But outside of that, man, flush this game. Because at the end of the day, it's not going to have an effect. If you win these next 3 to 4 games, it does not matter. Yeah. And that's the positive in all of this, man. It's early, long season. And besides, it could always be worse. You could be in Miami right now, just have 59 put on you, think you're going to tank. Or it could be you're in Cleveland where you thought you were Super Bowl champs because you signing all these off-season acquisitions and you got a 40 burger put on you by the Tennessee Titans and Marcus Mariota. It could be that. That's how I look at it, man.
At home, nonetheless.
Absolutely. So
hold on real quick, though. Is calling up Dez, or if Martavis gets reinstated, completely out of question, or would that potentially be a good idea?
I mean, they're talent, but at the same time, you can't think of them coming in now as this is 2013, 2014, 2015 Dez and Martavis, because it's not them. And if your expectation is that they are going to be bona fide number ones, well, then you're going to be sadly mistaken just how Cleveland is. Like, it's not realistic for those guys, especially at this stage in their careers. Martavis coming off of what? He didn't play at all last year. He played a little bit last year, but he didn't make any noise in Oakland. Dez coming off an Achilles injury. So essentially he's almost a year and a half removed from playing. That's a lot to suspect him to come in and, oh yeah, you're going to be the bona fide number ones. It's not realistic. Yeah. Like I said, from a Madden standpoint, it always sounds good though. They're good names. That's how I look at it, man.
Well, here's the thing with the what you were saying with the it's just one game.
Yeah.
My 15-1 record's still alive.
Oh, absolutely.
So
absolutely.
I'm not willing to throw in, because obviously at the beginning of the podcast you could tell I was a little despondent,
right,
a little down, but honestly my record's still alive, and
you can't go 15-1 without taking one loss.
Yeah, I didn't know exactly how it was going to be done. You've mentioned that we'll sit our starters the last game, but I was leaning towards it might be a random game in the year.
Okay.
They did the hard work for me. They got it out of the way. And
now we're good.
Now you just win every game here on out.
Smooth sailing.
As simple as that.
And speaking of your predictions too, I think we had a prediction or a bet on the Jets and Bills game. Even though you gave me 3.5, I didn't even need those points, but I appreciate you. Yeah, man. So the Bills did win that matchup. So I do have a dinner coming to me once again. So I just wanted to let you know I appreciate you. And throw that in on the podcast before we hop into the comments that we received in terms of fan reaction.
Well, there's that, and you gave me a nice call yesterday after the game. And apparently, I'm part of history because this was your first NFL bet, and
it wasn't
at the casino or anything, but
it was you. It was you, and it felt so special because, like I said, I bet on NBA playoffs games, I bet on UFC fights, boxing matches. I've even bet on college football, but never NFL. Never. That was sacred.
Yeah, exactly.
But now that I'm retired, I said, you know what, Deke, let's hop into this bet. And I was very happy with the results. I was very happy that my Buffalo Bills handled business and made me proud. And my boy Le'Veon balled out too, so it was a win-win for me. I told you that in the text. I said, man, I want to see my guy Le'Veon ball, but I want to see the Bills win.
I thought it was a lock, dude, but they proved me wrong. They came back and
came down. Yeah, 16 zip to start the third, and they found a way, man.
Oh well,
let's go Buffalo. So we had opened up the fan line last night, man, to get some people to bring their comments in. Yeah, we'll just say it was very active.
Yeah, you said 50 comments.
Yeah, it was very active, man. Some of the ones that we can read to keep our PG rating.
Dude, fans are crazy, man.
Yeah, so we'll just start out with James.Scott24. And he was just saying, man, what is going on with Mark Barron and Cameron Kelly defensively? What are they doing? For me, man, it was definitely times where I felt like Cameron, he struggled a little bit. Mm-hmm. He definitely had some miscommunications, and that led to touchdowns. For Mark, I think the matchup, man, the running backs, they were making him play in that space and having him chase those guys in those crossing routes, which is hard anyways, because it's different than just a traditional one-on-one, I'm lined up in front of you and let me guard you. When you're lining a guy up on one end of the field and having him sprint all the way across to the other side, the traffic that you have to run through, you're chasing, but you can't overcommit, because if he stops and puts his foot back like New England typically does, then you don't want to overrun it, because then you're susceptible for that. So it was just so much that goes into playing these running backs man coverage like that, especially when you're not a defensive back. You're not a corner. You're not a safety. Yeah. You're a linebacker. Regardless of the pedigree, regardless of what your history is, you're a linebacker. So these are the things that make that so tough to do.
The precision is just astounding. Then, if everything you're saying is what they do, and we see it every time we play them. Anytime you watch the Patriots, it's what they do. These just little crossing routes, 5 yards out, or they'll do like you saw. They come in, plant their foot, then go the other way
absolutely.
Outside. And for Brady just to be hitting them all the time,
that's how they do it, man.
That's hard as hell to
absolutely
defend. And then I guess with Kelly, I mean, probably just toss that up to maybe some inexperience.
Yeah, man, but it's hard to just toss it up to that when they put him out there. Granted, Sean Davis was injured, but they had options. If they wanted to go with the veteran experience of Jordan Dangerfield, they had that option. But the athletic ability was very intriguing for them with Cameron Kelly, and they wrote it. And those are things that they have to discuss and that they have to evaluate and see, okay, is this the right move? What should we do if this situation arises again? What is the status of Sean Davis's health? These are the questions that they have to answer, and I'm glad that we don't.
Yeah.
But he definitely had a rough go with it, man.
No, 100%.
Definitely had a rough go.
I think there was I know I brought up Des Bryant and Martavis, but I think someone commented like Eric Berry's still out there.
Yeah.
That could be interesting. I'm talking Madden, but
yeah, that's very Madden, because you have to think, even his last year in Kansas City, he struggled, man, coming back from the injuries and stuff. But I think that's just the fan element, man. People get so caught up and they remember all the glory years, right? Same with Earl Thomas. When you think of Earl Thomas, you don't think of Earl not being able to, open his hips, get where he needs to be and stuff like that. You just remember Earl, Legion of Boom, highlight reel. That's fans. Like it's nothing wrong with it, but when you think from a realistic standpoint, I'm trying to think a good example I could give you. Oh man, it's hard to find one like that where it was just like this. Chad Johnson, for example, right? Everybody remember Chad Johnson when he was in Cincinnati, 1,000-yard seasons, 100+ receptions, a bad man, but he was older. He was getting older. Goes to New England. It's like, man, all right, I don't know what this is. Is he gonna do something? Like, no, but you thinking he had like, I remember the Ocho Cinco dancing, the Hall of Fame jacket, the celebrations, but it's just he wasn't the same player anymore. He was older now,
right?
And that's one example. But this, man, if you really dive into it, it's a ton of examples like that where guys have that name, and you think of the glory days from. You think of all the things that made you fall in love with them as a player. But the game continues on, and these guys do age, and they do lose a step.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. So it's like, for Eric Berry, his mindset, he still wants to get paid X amount, right? So are you willing to pay him X amount when you're going to get equivalent to, or maybe potentially better with a Sean Davis, who's younger and more healthy? Like, these are the things that you really have to consider with that, man. So that's why I'm always like,
I might not be the best GM, because I would have been calling up Des and Barry.
Oh man, throwing them big money, and they're wondering why. Like, yo, why are we still having struggles on offense? Like, that's just the nature of it, man. Yeah.
What do we got for this second question,
man? So this was from Rachel.K.George. Simply said, felt the team was out-coached again.
This has been the narrative for a while, right? With Tomlin versus Belichick, like that we're constantly getting out-coached.
Right.
So,
and we have said that Belichick has out-coached a ton of coaches, just throwing that out there.
Exactly.
But, man, from what I saw, I do think coaching played an element, but I think a lot of it falls into the execution side as well, man. The guys just didn't execute. I can assure you their plan wasn't to have guys running free. I can assure you their plan wasn't to, hey, let's let Philip Dorsett just run up the seam. Yeah, that's a great coaching card. No, heck no. That's the execution element, though. That's the communication element. That doesn't fall on the coaching. That falls on the players. The players have to have some onus in this. Now, from a coaching standpoint, what I think of in terms of falling on them, the 3rd and 1 calls. The first 3rd and 1 where they line up in the shotgun and toss the ball to James Conner. He gets tackled for a 4-yard loss. Why do you have Rosie Nix on the roster if you're not going to use him in a 3rd and 1 situation? 4th and 1, same concept. Now you're trying to throw the ball. Why do you have James Conner, who's a downhill power thumper running back, along with the Rosie Nix if you're not going to use him? 3rd and 1 from the goal line. 4th and 1 from the goal line. Why? These are the things that I feel falls on coaching. The missed assignments, that's players. You have to be a professional. You have to understand, study your playbook. Imagine, Deke, if me and you say, hey, look, we're going to come here, we're going to record a podcast together. Yeah. We got our notes up here, and you're over here saying names from teams from I'm talking about Brady, and you're like, yeah, man, I think he plays for the Jaguars. And you're like, no, like, we just talked about this. We wrote this down. We know what we're going to discuss. And you go ahead, well, but Nick Foles plays for the Patriots. And it's like, no. And now you're like, oh, man, that's coaching. That's not coaching. We had a plan in place. Yeah. That's the execution element. Right. That's you got to be professional and do your job. I have to be professional and do my job. And that's what the Steelers struggled with last night.
Yeah. Now, well, I mean, along those lines, you brought up the 3rd and 1. A lot of fans, a lot of people, I was over my buddy's house watching the game, and people were yelling, why are we not sneaking it? Because that was something in the past, too.
That they talked about with Haley. And remember last year when Haley left, they ran the QB sneak as like a take that. Where was that? It's a good question.
Because they're like, I mean, you have Big Ben. Like, exactly. I don't know if there's been a time he hasn't gotten it, right?
Exactly.
I don't think Brady's ever, I mean, and that's Brady gets too. Him, he always gets the sneaks. And I think the stats show, I think Ben always has. Maybe one time, I couldn't tell you though, because we haven't done it like that often.
Right.
So that you're saying that comes.
That's all falls into coaching. Okay. Absolutely.
Got you.
Yeah. I also look at the Dante Moncrief getting him that many amount of looks versus a James Washington. That's coaching. Or seeing that, okay, Juju's struggling trying to win this one-on-one matchup. Let's move him around. Let's get him in motion. Let's get him in a bunch.
Get him in the slot or
Get him in a slot. Get him in a bunch formation where now Stephon can't get his hands on him. Don't have him at the point in the bunch. Have him as one of the back guys in the bunch where it's 3 receivers together.
Well, I guess that's the thing, too, then us talking about it being the first game. Maybe they just didn't expect that to be the case with Juju, right? But
I think that falls on coaching because you have to prepare.
Right.
Okay, we haven't seen Juju do it yet, have we?
Are we prepared to make these adjustments?
Right, because right now the only games that we've seen Juju outside of New England, we saw him as the number 1 receiver versus the Browns the last game of the season when we set all our starters in 2016, and then the Bengals last year, or excuse me, 2017, and then the Bengals last year. That's not really saying a lot. In the Bengals game, he wasn't even successful compared to the success he had versus the Browns. So outside of those games, when have you seen him do it by himself? We haven't. So for me, that falls on the coaching element of why wouldn't you have been prepared for that? So that's kind of why I throw that coaching aspect in it, man.
Good points. Yeah. Like that.
So let's see the next name. I don't want to butcher this. Latanya Handsome. I think I said that right. She said she's very disappointed. We're too gifted and talented to be playing like garbage. Time to bounce back ASAP. Next up, Seahawks. I do like the optimism with that.
Yeah.
And she was right, man. They did play bad. I mean, and I think the only phase that they didn't play bad in was special teams, where at least they hit their field goals. They were making some tackles, but they did give up a little I think it was a kickoff return on that after they kicked the field goal.
Yeah.
They still gave us some decent yardage on that. So The biggest thing, like I said, man,
dude,
next up,
I hate
Seahawks.
the Patriots, man. Like, I really like Brady because he's just awesome. But like, what I hate about him is just like how much they have those attention to details. Because you brought up special teams because that just triggered my mind. Like, dude, they got every time on these punt returns at least an extra 10 or 15 yards, like every time, and like. That's something you work on, you know, consistently. Like they care about special teams a lot.
Well, I'll say this: it's a reason why they're world champs, and it's a reason why they're always in the conversation. The attention to detail, not only from the coaching staff, but from the players. And I think the attention to detail is more so prevalent there because of their lack of talent. Sometimes, when you look at the players that the Steelers have had, in particular, like of recently. They have such talent from top to bottom on the rosters that a lot of times you can get away with not being as detailed because you're just a better player.
Yeah.
Whereas in New England, they're like, no, we're going to do it the exact way it needs to be done every time because we can't afford to freelance. We can't afford to say we're going to do it our way because we might not be that good. And I think that's,
Well, those special teams, though, it's like... It's weird because like it's such an afterthought, but as I'm watching the game,
afterthought to fans, players understand. But no, special teams a huge element.
But here's the thing, though: as I'm watching it, when they get those 10 or 15 yards, it takes the wind out of my sails as a fan. Yeah. But you're never thinking like because like this is why necessarily. Yeah. It's just like oh my gosh, and then because then it goes right to commercial, and then you're seeing the offense and defense playing out there the majority of the time.
Right.
But it just hit me, yesterday, I guess. I had an epiphany because I'm seeing them get 10, 15 yards on these punt returns. Yeah. I'm like, geez, oh, man, like, this is actually a huge part because, like, it's a momentum thing. I'm sure the players are thinking that,
and
too.
And from a field position standpoint, that 10, 15-yard gain is an extra first down.
Yeah.
Think about how hard it is to get first downs anyways, and you're getting 10-plus on a return.
And then if a drive stops at a certain point, that could be the difference between a field goal and a punt.
Yeah. Or you think about this, right? So, say they catch the ball on the 20, on their own 20, they get a nice 10-yard gain on it. They're at 30. They get 2 first downs. They're at the 50. Even if they don't get anywhere else, now they're punting. Now you're starting. You're driving inside your own 10. The field position element. Now you got to go 90.
Yeah.
And then when you don't go 90, say you only get 1 first down and you're punting the ball from your 20. Well, now I'm getting the ball on my 40. And then from there, another 10-yard gain. Now I'm at the 50 already. So now I'm at the 50. All I got to do is get 1 first down, and I'm in field goal position. But potentially, I'm in scoring position as well.
Yeah.
The field position element that a lot of people overlook is huge.
Yeah.
And that's how it goes, man. It's like, hey, as long as we're getting these returns, that adds up. It's not the big, sexy stuff that you see in terms of the big passes, but the impact of it is monumental.
Yeah. No, I feel you. Now, I have I don't know how many more comments.
I got one more I was going to read off. Yeah, but go ahead.
So my buddy brought this up, and I thought it was a good point. He was like, hey, maybe you could ask Moats on the next podcast. Like, with AB going to the Patriots, this is kind of like off the tracks here, but he said with AB going to the Patriots, like, why are they the organization that is able to get these second chances with players and almost always be playing with house money? Like, why would a person like AB want to go play for the Patriots? And then why does it just seem like they're always the organization that gets these chances?
I think it's a mix of a couple of things. First off, I think they believe 100% in their system. No nonsense. No player has ever been bigger than the team. Mm-hmm. They suspended Brandon Spikes when he was their starting linebacker going into a playoff game. They set down and did not play Malcolm Butler going into a Super Bowl that they probably would have won if he was out there. But they've historically been that type of team that they don't care who you are. Nobody's bigger than the team. And even with Brady, it starts with him. His approach. He's the first one in the building and the last one to leave. He's sitting in the front and he's taking notes. When you see that, how can you not fall in line when he's arguably the greatest quarterback, greatest player that we've seen play this game? So when you bring these at-risk players, for them it's low risk, high reward. They're not giving them big deals. No, they're giving them small deals. If you come in here and produce, then great. You'll either get re-signed here, or you're going to go hit it big in free agency. You're going to get a chance to compete for a Super Bowl. And that's what they sell them on. And for these at-risk players, like an AB, for example, right now, he knows this is his last leg. He knows that, okay, no matter how much people want to do the conspiracy theory, oh, this was planned. He had it scheduled like this from all along. he might have scheduled once he got fined, how can I accelerate my release aspect? And he had the consultant team helping with that element. But I can assure you, his plan was not to lose $21 million.
Yeah.
I don't care what you say. And you can't tell me that his plan was, oh, man, while I'm sitting here on this Steelers roster, I'm going to find a way to go to another team, then leave there, destroy my legacy, destroy my reputation, and then I'm going to go to New England. I don't want to hear that. Like I said, it sounds cool when you want to do a conspiracy theory, and we've seen this time and time again, but that's not realistic. Mm-hmm. Now, I do think, like I said, once he realized that he wasn't happy in Oakland, that, okay, I want to get out of here. Let's get out of here. Mm-hmm. But you can't tell me his whole plan was, oh, I'm going to get out and I'm going to go to New England. As much as people want to make it like that, that's not realistic, man. Mm-hmm. Now, I do think for him, going to New England, though, and the way he went about it, especially getting out of the Pittsburgh Steelers and getting out of the Raiders, now it's a lot more pressure on him because he's on a 1-year deal. Only $9 million guaranteed compared to the $30 that he would have had guaranteed with the Raiders, or the 18.5 that we had guaranteed with the Steelers. So money-wise is down. 1-year deal means he has to produce and get those numbers. Otherwise, free agency takes a hit. Not only that, if he gets hurt, 1-year deal, free agency takes a hit. If he goes in here and he acts up in any way, shape, or form, they have an issue with him from a disciplinarian standpoint, he takes a hit in free agency. All those things are associated with his risk now. Mm-hmm. And another element when we talk about this is his grand scheme to make it there to New England. Do you really think, knowing AB and knowing how big he is in terms of making the money, right? Because you can't say that he wants to win a Super Bowl and that was his only focus, because if that's the case, he would have never left Pittsburgh because he had one of the best opportunities there. But just think from a money standpoint, what happened this weekend? He hardballs his way out. He gets a $9 million guaranteed contract to go to New England, whereas Julio Jones just signed for $66 million. 69 full potential, but 66 fully guaranteed. The largest receiving quarterback, the largest contract ever given out to a receiver. Mm-hmm. You really think that AB's goal was to sign for $9 million while this man was signing for 66 fully guaranteed? I don't want to hear that, man. I don't want to hear none of that. You can say you don't love money as much as you want, but I can assure you that was not his plan. It worked out for him.
Yeah.
But even with it working out the way it did, it's still so many more variables and moving parts to it now, because he really has to go in there and execute. We are hoping that he can go in there and pick up the scheme. You're hoping that he can go in there and understand the timing, because a lot of his success with Ben was through what? Improvisation. He would break off his routes. He would freelance. Ben would play off of him. You saw Brady last night. Does Brady look like he improvises and freelances, or does Brady like it's timing?
Yeah.
It's timing.
That'll be interesting.
Yeah.
So to play off your point, though, with Brady being first in, last out, he's got to be. I know Belichick, they say, is like he's the guy, and like
right.
anyone could be their quarterback. Not anyone, but like if you get an above average quarterback, like they could be doing all this. Like Brady's the one then that like epitomizes that team element that I'm not above.
He's
the
team Patriot way.
Think of other teams around the league. I mean, how many egos get in the way?
Absolutely.
Whether it's quarterback, receivers, running backs, but
or even the money they want.
If you have the guy that won, those 3 Super Bowls early in his career, put up all those numbers, and just has the cachet Brady does, where he's like, nah, it's about the team no matter what.
Right.
Then I feel like that's actually huge, because like Belichick could have whatever X system, but if he has a quarterback that one isn't as talented as Brady, but then also is just more about himself, then it's not going to work.
It's a trickle down effect.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That is
trickle down effect, man.
Brady's a huge reason why I guess they're able to get these guys.
Absolutely. I think all of that plays into it. And the things that you touched on, how can you not go in and agree with that model or that method when you see the best player doing it, the guy who's had the most success as a football player do it? When he was with the Steelers, AB, for example, where was he? He could kind of go back and forth with Ben about who was more important, who's more successful, right? Ben has Super Bowls, but he never had a Super Bowl MVP. He's never been an MVP, so he has arguments in that regard. He goes to the Raiders, he's the biggest thing out there, without a doubt. But now when you go to New England, they don't care who you are, AB. You're not a star to them. You're not bigger than Tom Brady. You will never be bigger than Tom Brady while you're out there. So you either get in line or you get gone.
Yeah.
And that's how it is there. And that's why I'm saying, for me, I think it's just a lot that has to go right for AB to be successful up there and to eventually get the contract that he would be hoping to get through free agency as well.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Good stuff. You want to hit that?
Yeah,
last
no, we
comment?
get this last one before we get up out of here. This is from 808. I don't even know how it says, like Fahoki, PHO or POHOIKI. I don't even know how to pronounce that, so we just leave it at that. But they said it looked like Steelers were playing touch football out there. Steelers must be tanking like the Dolphins. Man, they did look bad out there defensively, without a doubt. They missed a ton of tackles. But I think we can all agree that they're not tanking like the Dolphins. The Dolphins look bad.
Nah, dude.
The Dolphins had Lamar Jackson out there throwing 5 touchdowns, breaking passing records and stuff. That was just, dude, that was nonsense.
Yeah, I had this dude, and I'm doing that fantasy league on Instagram. I guess I'm playing him actually, and he was a Ravens fan. He doesn't have any Ravens on his team.
Okay,
or anything,
smart man.
But so he had Dak going, and he this was before the 4:00 game. Dak, he obviously throws 4 touchdowns, but I was beating him pretty good up to that point. I'm losing the matchup, but he goes, you know what? I'm gonna lose. I'm gonna lose this matchup because I didn't start X and X player. Yeah. I said, no, you're losing this matchup because my Steelers are going off tonight.
Oh,
and then that's when he's like, nah, man, your Steelers ain't shit. You know, what I mean? You just look at my Ravens. I'm like, oh, you a Ravens fan?
Oh, okay.
So like, I think they might be. Those Ravens fans might be getting a little too big for their britches here. I think people are gonna hype them up a little too much. And I was telling him, I'm like, listen, dude, it's Miami. He's like, Miami, what, man? Like Lamar Jackson, he didn't even run it all, and he was doing this and this. But like,
Miami is
how about
tanking, bro?
How about what? This is the best way to wrap this up because this is a good thought with the Ravens game and all that. It's one game. It's one game on both sides.
Absolutely. It's
Ravens winning 59 whatever, and us losing 33 whatever. It's one game.
One game.
Long season, man.
Hey, don't get too high, don't get too low, man. But I will say this though, man. What we do have coming up this weekend, the terrible tailgate. We'll be in attendance for the home opener. Make sure you're out there. It's going to be crazy. If you need details, hit us up on social media. Hit up Steeler Gang on social media, man. You don't want to miss the tailgate. We'll be a live recording of the Arthur Moats show. It's going to be an awesome experience, and we will hopefully be cheering on the Steelers as they beat the Seattle Seahawks.
Get that dub. Yeah.
Absolutely,
man. It didn't
look
too hot against Cincinnati, so.
Yeah. Yeah, man. So,
but yeah, awesome.
It was always a blast. You already know, man.
We powered through the podcast, even though it wasn't the best talk ever.
Yeah, man.
It's just something you got to do. You got to get out of the way.
Just get it out. The 24-hour rule.
Yeah. Well, you could tell as we're talking, it started lightening up as we were going through the podcast. And
Absolutely. Always glass half full, man. So we're going to leave it on a high note.
Exactly.
We definitely appreciate y'all for tuning in. And until next time,
peace.